Awesome. So, you got 1 minute each. And your time starts now. One minute left. November. No, I'm September, and I'm not participating. So November's here. July. Just find somebody else. Have you got a partner? Then just, yeah, there you go. Right. Start wrapping it up. And stop. Okay, so listen up, guys. Stop. I know you guys are having lots of fun. Don't worry, we'll have more fun. What I'm going to ask you to do now is whoever you've paired up with for this session, I'm going to ask you to sit together. Would that be okay? Okay, grab a seat. Great stuff. So, in this talk, I'll be focusing on individuals and interactions. We'll be looking at how we can maximize our Scrum by putting people first. First things first, let's give some recognition to the sponsors. For some reason this hasn't updated the slides, so I'm going to have to just work with it in an agile way, be responsive. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. I am a coach, consultant, trainer, specializes in agile enterprise level transformation. Those are some of the clients that I've worked with. I'm also the author of Waterfall to Agile, Practical Guide to Agile Transition, and the founder of Agile TV. But the most fortunate thing for me, or the thing that I feel most blessed about, is the fact that I'm an agile student. How many of you recognize that as you learn more, you recognize that there's more to learn? Okay, great. There you go. So I'm a student, right? And I'm on the journey as well. So I'm learning new things as we go along. Now, like most of you, I'm usually very busy. So I don't really get much time to watch television or movies and stuff. But last year I saw a really great movie, which is Black Panther. How many of you seen Black Panther? Great film, right? Yeah. Fictional, futuristic, or current, whatever you want to see. And then Game of Thrones. I am so waiting for April, right? Winter's coming. How many of you know about Game of Thrones? It's awesome, right? That's a fictional past. One thing I noticed about both of them is, actually, if you look at the cultures, the technologies, they might be different, but guess what? People seem to be the same. It's kind of weird, right? Wherever I go in the world, it's like people tend to be the same. This is the first time I've been in Dubai, and when I came off the plane, I noticed you guys have got people. Like, wow, it's like the rest of the world, okay? It's like they've got people. I'm still new in Dubai, so I'm still learning about the culture. Do you have people who sometimes might be stubborn? Okay, cool. And do you have people who sometimes might want to hold on to information and not share it? Okay, people are the same everywhere, right? No problem. So it's like T'Challa and Jon Snow, right? The honorable guys who are going out there to try and change the world. They've got some personal values. They really believe in stuff. They go for it. Different worlds, same kind of drives. Then you've got Eric Killmonger and Jaime Lannister. You might call them villains, but when you kind of look into their life, you're like, okay, I can see where they're trying to get to. Maybe it's the wrong approach, right? You get that as well. And then you got Shuri and Aristarch, who these young, breaking the mold, kind of going against stereotypes and going out and being innovative. You have them everywhere, regardless of what the setting is. And like I said, that's got me to start looking at, actually, across the board, people seem to be the element all the time. In fact, in agile transition and transformation, we say that these things would be easy if it wasn't for the people. How many of you know what I'm talking about, right? If you take the people out, agile transformation is easy, right? It's like, bam. Okay, but it's the people. Complex adaptive systems. They're involved in the whole process. And so, against that background, we're going to be looking at some elements that you might want to consider. But here's a quote I recently came across. Change is the only constant in life. How many of you agree with that? Right? We've heard at the moment there's lots of change going on. Right? Digital change. Right? There's political change. We've got Brexit. How many of you guys are familiar with Brexit? Yeah? Don't worry. Don't worry. We don't even know what it is, okay? we have no clue. It's just this thing that we keep on hearing about. Someday we'll figure out what it actually means. Hopefully in the next few weeks, but we'll see. Okay? But change is constant. Digital transformation, you've heard about it a lot. Keep hearing about the free to watch, right? Biotechnology. That's where biology meets data, right? And as a result, they're saying that they're finding more cures and people are going to live longer. That's going to mean more products and more strains on services and all that other stuff. It's great. Then you've got nanotechnology where you can get down to the molecule level and change the essence of things. So we're seeing new products and new types of kind of innovative products coming out, and that's just, okay. Who knows where that's going to take us? And then you've got AI, machine learning and robotics and all this other stuff. Quick confession, right? Personally, that scares me the most, okay? Here's my reasons why. I look across nature and I say, there's no form of intelligence that doesn't actually start fighting for its own survival. So if we are creating intelligence here, who knows what will happen? But hey, that's just me, right? So don't worry about that. So we've got all of that happening, and as all these technologies converge, and other technologies, it's going to be exponential. Change is going to be exponential. Change is never going to be as slow as it is right now. It's going to speed up. It's going to speed up and get much more complex. We spoke before about actually, we heard talk about actually understanding what your customer needs and identifying it, right? No longer can we just make an assumption about here's what the customer needs. We've got to be able to get into the customer suit. And guess what? Customer needs are changing all the time too. How do you respond to that? It's like, whoa. It's like, you said you wanted this, now you want that. It's like, buka. So what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do here is, against the historical backdrop, so another thing about me, I like history. I like to read up about history and see what I can learn from it. So against that backdrop, we're going to be looking at Alexander the Great when he came up against Darius III in the Battle of Gaugamela. Gaugamela is current day somewhere apparently in Iraq. I believe so. That's what they say. But if you know the history of it, Alexander was a young commander. The estimates are that Darius's army was anything up to about 5 times the size of what Alexander the Great came to the battlefield with. Some estimates said that Alexander came with about 50,000. Darius came with, 250,000. So by all odds, who should have won that battle? Darius, right? But we know historically that actually Alexander the Great won. And so we're going to use that as a kind of concept to start looking at how do you maximize your Scrum? Through people, by putting people first. So let's delve into it. Morale. Important. Team or individual morale. One of the things is that, or the question really is, what contributes to morale? When we know that actually morale can help a team to really succeed. Here's just a few things I would like you to consider. Purpose. So Alexander the Great and his army, right? They were on a purpose. They wanted to go out and conquer the world, right? They had grown up on all the tales of the heroes, and they all wanted to be heroes. It's like, yeah, we're focused. We're going to change the world. We're going to go out there and make a big difference. Darius's army was made up of conscripts, because basically from each of his territories, he would say, yeah, you need to give me 100 people, you'd have to give me 100 people. So these people, it's like, purpose is really, I want to go home. I'm not a fighter. I'm not interested in this. I've been forced into it. Command and control. Here you go. Get out there and fight. It's a purpose. Purpose is important. We talk about, when we're talking about Scrum and all that type of stuff, vision, right? That's the kind of equivalent. What's the vision? What's the purpose of the team? What is it we're trying to do? What's the end goal that we're trying to get to? Autonomy. Now, here's where I like to make a distinction. Looking at it from a very high level, but that's just me. In many ways, Darius' approach was very much like a waterfall approach. He was the supreme general in charge. Nobody could move without him giving the command, right? There was no autonomy. And that meant in a VUCA type environment, because we know the battlefield is just very volatile, there's lots of uncertainty, it's complex, there's ambiguity, things are adapting very fast. It meant that, well, only when he said, hey, respond, could the army respond. Alexander, he had a different approach. What he did is he autonomized out the kind of ability for each area to be able to decide, depending on what was happening on the battlefield, how to respond. Interesting enough, even though we said that Darius' army was 5 times bigger than Alexander's, if you look at the command structure, underneath Darius he had four leaders. That was it. That was all. But under Alexander, he had 15 different leaders, okay, who were responsible for different units. And it's like, whatever happens, I'm putting the trust in you. Autonomy is a key one. How do you allow teams or the organization to respond to change? Is it a top-down, hey, you must tell me, and by the time I tell you to take an action, it's too late, things have changed? Or do you at least give them the freedom? We heard before about trust. Do you give them the trust, the support, and everything that they need to be able to respond towards the vision that you've set? Mastery. As we said before, the conscripts of Darius' army were made up of farmers and other everyday people who weren't soldiers, but they were forced into these wars. Alexander the Great's army was made up of veterans. They'd fought many, many, many campaigns alongside him. They knew how to do this. In fact, part of the structure that Alexander had was that he would get his commanders and he would get people who were from the same area to be in a unit. So that created collaboration and trust and all that. Darius, on the other hand, he would just throw loads of people together who didn't know each other. Sometimes they didn't even speak the same language, came from different cultures, and say, hey, go out and fight. Like a collaboration. So Alexander's army was made up of masters. They were specialists at what they did. Okay? Some of you might be familiar with some of these concepts from Dan Pink's book, The Drive. Purpose. Do your teams have a real purpose? Do you give them autonomy? Are you enabling them to master what they do? Are you giving them the freedom? I see that quite a lot with clients, by the way. Some of my clients pay some people a lot of money to come in to be told what to do. It's like, really? Why would you do that? You're going to pay them lots of money. It's because they've got knowledge and skill sets. Maybe you might want to allow them to do what they do. Don't know. Maybe that's just me. So, and here's a couple of motivators, right? Intrinsic being that actually self-motivated. Most people can be self-motivated in the right environments. They have the self-drive, they want to belong, they want to learn. What we see quite a lot of is the extrinsic motivators, the carrot and stick approach. We give you this, if you do this, if you don't do this, we're going to do that to you. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Okay? So take a minute quickly and turn to your partner and discuss what is the key driver within your organizations or within your teams. Is it intrinsic or extrinsic? Which one do you think might work best for you? So take a quick minute and a half. I'll tell you at the half point just to discuss that with your partner. Switch over. Start wrapping up. And stop. Awesome. So, start thinking about how your organization works. What's driving people? Innovation tends to come from people who are more intrinsic, right? Feel like they have the opportunity to be able to express it. Otherwise, all you're doing is you're kind of putting people within a system, and you start seeing some behaviors which are actually defined by the system and constrained by the system, which doesn't necessarily lead to innovation. Just something to think about. Utilization. So there's more to life than increasing its speed. So here's the thing. On the night of the battle, Alexander got his generals together and he asked, so we're outnumbered 5-1. What do you think we should do? One of the generals actually turned around and said, actually, maybe we should have a night attack. Let's attack them at night. Alexander thought about it and said, nah, if we're going to fight this, we're going to fight this properly. But for him, that was a good insight, because it's like, if my general's thinking like that, maybe Darius is thinking like that too. So he kind of staged, made some noise, and made it seem like they're going to do a night attack. How did Darius respond? He got his army to stay ready all night. Like, these guys are going to attack us at night. If I was in his position, I'd attack at night because we got the odds, right? It's like, okay. So he made the army stay up, ready in battle formation all night. Think about it. They're responding to fear. It's dark. Something moves. Ah, what's that, right? By the time the day started, they're all mentally and emotionally and physically worn out. Alexander comes to the army with a fresh army. Comes to the battle with a fresh army. Yeah, we're ready for this. Okay? 100% utilization. Here's what 100% utilization looks like on a motorway. Not much fun, right? Do you guys have traffic jams out here? Great. I'm from Nigeria originally, Lagos. If any of you have ever been to Lagos, oh my days, traffic jams, forget about it, man. Okay? That's what happens when you 100% utilize a motorway. Not a good thing. Here's what happens when you 100% utilize a computer. How many of you ever had that blue screen of death, right? Yes, one of those, I want to throw it out the window, right? It's just like 100% utilized. It's not good. What do you think happens when you 100% utilize human beings? Yeah, I see it with a lot of my clients. Oh, what? You got 25% time left? Actually, I recently had a client, guess what they've been tasked at the PMO to do? 110% utilization out of every person. I'm bad at maths, I'll tell you right now, right? I failed my GCSE maths, but that doesn't make sense to me. Like, how can you get 110% out of one human being? I'm looking to the academics here, help me. that was exactly it. It's like, well, if they work lunch and work overtime, then we can get 100%, 110%. That's terrible. Okay? Most people don't function beyond 80% utilization. You get 110%? It's terrible. Then you have situations like where people start getting burnt out, their family life is falling apart. It's just terrible. It's terrible. It's a mess. But that's the impact. Is that sustainable? As we saw with Darius, his army wasn't sustainable. In the morning they were tired. Okay? It's not sustainable. So you need to start thinking about that. Is it better to hold back some utilization? You actually find you might get more out of people. Right? It's just a thought. Okay? It's just something to work with around that. Now, in front of you, we're just going to do a quick exercise. You should have a piece of paper and pencil. If you haven't got one, look to your side. Somebody sure is going to have some. This would be a chance for us to even practice some further collaboration. Okay? So grab a piece of paper. We're going to do a quick exercise. Okay? Everyone got a piece of paper and a pencil? Okay? Right, this exercise is very simple. In a moment, you're going to write this sentence. So across one line, you're going to write this sentence, switch tasking as a thief. When you finish writing that, and I'm going to tell you when, so wait, right? I'm going to tell you when, so wait. Then after that, you're going to write the numbers 1 through to 21, okay? I'm going to say go, so that means we'll all start at the same time, and then I'm going to be shouting out 5-second intervals. All you've got to do is just register how long it takes you to complete this exercise. So switch tasking in the thief first, numbers 1 to 21. Yeah? Any questions around that? Okay, so on your marks, get set, and go. 25, and I'll stop at about 30, okay? So I believe most people have got it done. Usually 30 tends to work. Okay, second part. Here's what we're going to do, okay? So what you're going to do this time, you're going to write S first, then you're going to go to the number 1, then you're going to go to W, then you're going to go to 2, I, and 3, okay? Everyone get it? So you're just going to keep on alternating between the letter and the number, letter and the number, letter and the number, right? It's going to be easy. It's awesome. Don't worry. It's going to be fine. Okay? Once again, I'm going to shout out 5-second intervals. All you've got to do is just complete the task and then just write down how long it takes you. That's all. Okay? So, starting now. 5. 10. 15. 20. 25. 30. 35. Oh, you guys are taking longer. 40. 45. 50. And I'm going to wrap it up at 60. And 60. So here's a number of things that I'm going to do right now. I'm a human being. I have cognitive biases, so let me put it out right now. What I'm about to say right now might be based on my cognitive biases, but I'm going to make a number of assumptions. So the first assumption I'm going to make is that for most of you, if not all of you, your time went up the second time around. Yeah? Would that be a fair assumption? Okay, great. Okay, good, cool. That for some of you, on the second time around, your quality went down. Yeah? If any of you are like me, some of you might have even got confused, like what number comes after 4, right? It's like, whoa, it's like, what's all that about? Yeah, okay, great, okay. And that for some of you, if not all of you, your stress levels went up on the third time around. I mean, second time around. Is that correct? Okay, great. That's human nature, by the way, okay? And that's the whole thing about task switching. Are you doing that with your team members? Do you have team members who are spread across multiple projects and you're requiring them to constantly task switch, and if they don't get it right, it's like, it's your fault because you're using your extrinsic kind of motivators to beat them up, but you've put them in a context that actually it's not really going to work. I would like to assume that most of you, your organizations, do more than switch between numbers. Would that be a fair? Okay, great. So if your time went up on something like this, what do you think the impact is when you start getting people to context switch all the time? There's a cost associated with that. I'll show you some data later. Like I said, I updated the slides, but it hasn't come through. I'll show you some data that even supports that as well. Okay? Now, here's the thing. Once again, apologies. So I updated it with the local team. I think it was Alin or something, and then I also updated it with the elite UAE forces, but unfortunately it hasn't come through, so my bad, okay, all right? But teams, let's look at teams. Let's look at some of the elite teams in the world. What do they tend to have in common? What do you think? Teamwork, okay? That's what we see manifested. How do you think teamwork comes about? Shared goal. Collaboration. Pardon? Human interaction. Practice, and also long-standing. What you'll find with some of these teams is they've been together for quite a while. Some of the best football teams, cricket teams or whatever, it's like Because I know how you play. I know that when you run that way, there he goes. Okay, I'm going to go that way. And we don't even need to talk about it no more. I get it. Okay? Long-standing teams. The more we are together, the more we start to understand each other, and we got all the other bits and pieces that are happening, right, where we just know this is how we work. Strengths complement weaknesses, makes us much more effective. Okay? And that's why you see lots of organizations, and the drive is create product teams and long-standing teams, because if you get people and you start splitting them up and putting them over the place, it creates issues, because you've got to go for that whole storming, norming, forming, performing. And if you're going to invest so much in putting together teams, why would you then just start breaking them up? It's costly. It costs a lot. Here's the data I was talking about before. Should have done it differently. So let me try it again. Okay? Assuming that I am split equally across 2 projects. How's my time allocated? 50-50, right? Okay, simple. There you go. Actually, it's not. Because as you saw with that other exercise, you lose 20% to context switching. The whole thing about my mind ramping down, ramping up, that gets lost. But project management and maybe some leaders don't see that. It's like, well, you're 50-50, right? Come on, I want some more work out of you. That's not taken into consideration. How many of you are working on 2 projects? How many are working on 3 projects or more? How many are working on 4 projects? How many of you are working on 5 projects? Okay, I can see the people who are working late and working weekends and stressed out, right? Because look at that. If you're working on 5 projects, you're only getting 5% each. Plus you got 110% utilization. Anyway, all the maths gets crazy, right? It's like, well, whatever. So it's just something worth thinking about. Right, take a quick moment, minute each, and just discuss with your partner these questions. And if you're not using Scrum teams, that's fine. Just ask yourself, are the teams that we're working with, do we work in this way? So take a minute each and quickly discuss that now. Switch. Okay, and start wrapping it up. And stop. Any of you are Lord of the Rings fans, you know where this one comes from. There you go, and say no more. But anyway, so what brings it all together? You've kind of heard it mentioned in 2 of the earlier talks. But really, it's about the leadership. Alexander the Great's victory was about the leadership style he chose to empower people, to be able to respond to uncertainty and be able to respond to the unknown. Leadership is a big factor. Hopefully this will play. So what did you notice there? How did they get people to change their behavior? Fun. Okay. What else? What did they do to introduce fun? Change the environment. It's environmental change. Nothing to do with the people directly. It's the whole thing about extrinsic again. Leadership changes within an agile organization. It's about creating the right environment to enable people to grow, to align with the purpose, to be able to give the outcomes that you want. Bearing in mind that we actually may be clear on the outcome, but we don't know how the world is going to respond. So we need the ability to be able to respond. Agility. There you go. It's a different ballgame. That's what leadership exists for. We know, we've been hearing about it. A lot of the work I'm doing right now is on culture and leadership. Is actually, can you really have a proper, sustainable, agile transformation without changing the organizational culture to align with the agility principles and values? And who drives that? To some degree, it's going to be the leadership. Think Alexander the Great versus Darius. Think about the different type of approach they took as leaders. We're seeing it with lots of small, I don't know what it's like in the UAE, but in the UK and certain other parts of the world, it doesn't matter how big you are as an organization, it doesn't matter how long you've been around, it doesn't matter how much money you've got. All that determines is actually your kind of how long you might survive on your decline. Small startups are coming in and they're just agile by nature, and it's like they're able to respond to change and learn very quickly, and they can, take out Darius the Great. It's like, hey, Darius, right, very easily. So just think about that. Is your organization set up to survive and thrive, or to, disappear? So just a few things in closing that I'd like to leave you with. Boost and maintain morale. What could you do to boost and maintain the morale of the people within your organization? Make them feel happy. Make them feel like they want to participate in whatever it is you're creating. Give people space to breathe. We heard earlier on from Boris. The numbers are saying that people have 24 minutes a week to kind of learn some new stuff. Like, really? That's not going to work, is it? Whereas Google's model was like the whole 20%. Okay? Innovation. Give you some time to actually go away, breathe, and think about some stuff. I don't know about you, but I'm the type of person is like, I have like the craziest ideas at the craziest moments, right? When I'm really involved in it, it's like, and I could be having a shower or wherever, and it's like, just comes to me. There you go. That's the answer. Right? So just think about that. Create stable teams. Build stable teams. Knowledge sharing. They get better over time. They get much more effective over time. They understand the domain and the problem space over time. Innovation kicks in over time. You're going to get much more out of stable teams than you are of keep on moving people left, right, and center. Lead from the front. So lead by example. Interesting enough, guess what? Alexander on his white horse, he was in the front, always charging it down. Guess what Darius was doing? He had like rows and rows and rows and rows of people in front of him, right? And part of the reason why actually Alexander was able to beat him was he decided, actually, we're going to go straight for Darius. And they went straight down the center. And guess what Darius did? He ran. Okay? Leadership is also very interesting because guess what happened to Darius in the end? One of his generals killed him. There you go. Okay? So watch out as a leader. Are your people there to support you and help you? Or when the time is right, they just stick something in your back? It's just something to think about. Okay. Do I have time for questions? I didn't see. Yep. What's that? Is that, because it's upside down, is that 7, 1, or L? 1. Okay. One question. Thank you. I thought it might be something else. It's always good to check in first, right, and validate it. Okay, so apparently I can only take one question now. I'll be here throughout today so we can catch up with anybody who would like to ask a question. Yes, sir.
Hi, Ade. That was a really good presentation. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
I've got a question about Game of Thrones. So, let's say you have Jon Snow who's leading his army into battle, and then you've got someone like Jaime Lannister who's countering that with his battle. So, if Jaime was sort of like the business level guy who's running very waterfall-based practices, Jon Snow's very agile. How do you try, in your experience, basically try to convince Jaime to say, okay, listen, we need to have a bit of communication here. We're running agile, you're running waterfall, and we're going to war. What kind of mix can you do so that everyone works well together and really create a useful environment that everyone can work in?
That is a great question. It's one of those questions that as a speaker you kind of prepare for. It's like, whoa, I got to respond to that. So let's bring it more concrete. I have that situation with lots of clients, right? Which is, hey, we're going in this direction and they're going in that direction. And the answer to that is it depends. There could be a number of factors. This is why I say to people, sometimes you've got to, first of all, understand the organization, the existing culture, the complex adaptive system that exists within, that's creating the type of behaviors, and that might determine your approach. So typically, I mean, personally, I have this saying, which is actually, if you think about it, especially if it's the split is IT versus business, right? That's kind of what I call business schizophrenia, right? It's like, why would you split yourselves that way? You both exist to help the organization do something. It's like, whoa, cultural issue there. So we'd start to unpack that. But typically something like that, I always believe that it's best to show people rather than tell people. So it'd be a case of, hey, let's run an experiment. Just let me have a couple of your business people. Let's create a cross-functional team. Let's see what are some of your pain points. Okay, let's just try something, okay? And then demonstrate through it. And usually what you'll find is they'll be like, whoa, this is great. Every 2 weeks I get to see something. Before they used to take our money and come back 5 years later and say, there you go. We're like, wrong, okay? So I would, depending on the context you're in, read the context, understand the context, try some small experiments. Let them see for themselves that this might be beneficial. That, to me, I find tends to work best. Yeah? Awesome. I'm available all today, so thank you very much.